Hello. Hello. How is everyone doing? How is everyone doing? Hopefully everyone's doing well. Let me fix this microphone. Hopefully everyone is doing well. Hello and welcome to a very special, super incredible, amazing, fantastic, completely unplanned for live stream. Pax Dei Live. We're back at it again. We're here on a Monday of all things. And oh my God, we have so many things to talk about, don't we? So, okay. What just went live, literally a minute as of right now ago, was the the developer interview that we had with Peter, Solka, and Christian about the new Proving Grounds update that's coming next week, November 5th. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. All right, that's what we're going to be talking about today. This is just another fun little stream that we're doing on top of all of the other fun things that we are doing as well. So welcome, hello and welcome. I am Eltarii, the professional gamer. And yeah, there was some things that just came out that we are going to talk about, y'all. We are for sure going to talk about it. Now, let me see what all is messed up here. I might have accidentally... Oh, no, this is still looking good, but is chat still there? Oh, it is. Perfect. Oh, hey, Tanalier. How are you, buddy? Look at that, waving to the stream. Hello. Okay, so, yeah, this stream, we are primarily going to just be talking about all of the stuff that we learned from the interview. Nothing extra, but a great way to kind of help everyone digest all of the crazy stuff that we learned in all of the interview. So that interview just officially went live. I believe Mainframe is going to be posting an actual update for all of the content creator videos that are coming out. And so that is going to be happening. There were several content creators that needed to go through some edits really quick. It was supposed to come out a little bit earlier, and then some changes needed to be made, and those were made. And then now they're going live, and they'll do kind of like whenever everything rolls out, it'll roll out. But hello, good morning, good afternoon for everyone joining us where it is afternoon right now. I'm so happy that you can join us today. If you're joining us because you saw that we were live on one of the YouTube videos, hello and welcome. We are pretty much just covering all of the fun things that were in that interview as well. So most of the people, and when I say most, I mean quite literally 100% of everyone who is here right now, you are not watching the actual interview that just got posted. There's a couple of things that we are going to talk about. In fact, what we might end up doing here is let me actually switch over to here somewhere. And oh, didn't want that. Oh, I don't know why I'm on that. Anyways, well, what we're going to pull up is also the YouTube video of gameplay, because I feel like that actually is going to be pretty useful as we're going through and talking about things, right? So what we are going to be doing, 3 videos came out today. We have the overview, which is just going over everything that existed for like this particular update. And then we also have the unedited, just raw gameplay footage that we got from this showcase. I don't know why this is up here, sorry. There we go. Oh, hey, look, there's me. Yeah, I'll disappear here very shortly. Let me move. There we go. Here we go. Now I'm not there. Let me get my face out of this stream here. That's not what we wanted. There we go. Okay, so here we are. We found our stuff up. An extremely professional hello to all. Welcome, Dolly. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We should just watch it together. Well, you know what? That's a great idea. Let's go and do that. Let's go look at the exclusive interview, huh? There's like a watch party. We're gonna watch party it. All right. I'm just what am I gonna do here? I'm gonna hit play and we're gonna go for it, right? Right? All right. I'll pause it whenever we need to talk about something.
Hello,
so let's just watch it.
Welcome back, all of you amazingly professional consumers of Pax Day and Pax Day related content out there. I'm Eltarii, the professional gamer, and
such a sultry voice right now.
We are getting the almost 1 hour's worth of
this video is actually 52 minutes long.
It's got commentary,
FYI. So
it's got probably some
it's also not going to be HD quality
really
yet.
Interview.
So
we ask a whole heck of a
take
lot
that
of
with
questions.
You have it is HD
3
already.
Different developers that are joining
YouTube
us, as well as
nice.
Eileen, who is in the background. You can kind of hear her voice. She might pop in a couple of times, and then we were joined specifically today by Peter, Solka, and a new face that we haven't seen yet on any video, and that is Christian. He is the lead combat designer for Pax Day. He joined the team, I think, earlier this summer, so he is relatively fresh, but he's already making a lot of awesome changes to the combat system, which I think will be for the better. And you all have seen Peter and Solka on the previous interviews that we've done on the... Yes, Phoenix. So we got Osric on this dev interview. He's great. He's really knowledgeable. There's actually something that already changed as a result of this interview. I'll touch on it when we get to that point too. On this channel, so we were more than gracious to see them as well, and we were joined by a whole heck of a lot of other content creators from various...
Is the sound okay? Can you all hear that?
Well, so you'll see a couple of different faces popping up throughout the interview, but I hope you all enjoy, and if you do,
okay, good.
Don't forget to hit that like button.
Hey, don't forget,
so you can get notified whenever we come out with.
Don't forget to hit that
related content.
And
share this video with any of your friends who might be interested in learning about all of the things that are changing with the.
Hit the subscribe button.
In this video, in particular,
don't forget to like.
Go into talking about some things to do with knighthoods.
Fun fact: you can't actually do that from this,
as well as money,
this screen,
and. There's a lot of kind of future spection that is going into this video too. And that goes without saying that this is one of two other videos.
A cheer.
Well, one of 3 total videos,
I'm not
I
even
guess.
paying attention. I heard a sound. I'm sorry.
Today.
I was too focused on
just getting a general overview.
Trying to hit that
or
button.
Just looking at the gameplay that was shown. Both of those videos are linked down in the description below. I highly recommend that you go and check those out as well. We will be coming out with another video talking about our thoughts and opinions on the interview and everything that we learned, coming out later this week. But anyways, I'll let you all get to what is.
If you all have any questions
video,
too,
and I'll see you.
I can answer some
the
things.
Next one.
To do in terms of player controls and the combat response was to increase responsiveness and usability of this. So actions.
So
will
we
be
had to
more
like
immediate when you do
throw
them,
this together as quickly as possible,
and you can cancel actions into other actions.
I was actively
showcase
trying to
a
get
bit of
everything
that.
moving
First of all,
as the
we got
interview
rid
was
of
going.
the
So
automatic
sorry about that one.
Walk thing. It's still an option. You can enable it in the options screen if you like that way of playing, but it introduces a lot of issues in terms of, like, for example, in combat situations, you accidentally went into walk mode when you didn't want to, and that caused a lot of deaths. So right now the default movement mode is running. You can still toggle to walking because there are still a lot of good reasons to do just walking, like RP reasons, or just you want to have a bit more fine control in tight spaces.
So one important thing there too is that you can actually, what they said is that you can go and change in the settings if you want it to be run first, walk later, or if you want it to be walk first, run later. I say that right? Yeah. So it is a setting. If you don't like it, if you liked how it was, I think you're going to be able to keep it.
A big thing is a melee system.
And sorry for the quality
we
here.
reused
This is
lot
a
of the
Discord
old
live stream,
animations in
so
terms of melee, but
it gets better at times, and then
from player's
gets worse,
perspective, you
and then
could
gets better
almost
again.
say that it's a completely new thing. So first of all, you can once you start attacking, you can cancel into blocking. You can
So
basically
what?
chain attacks.
So what he was doing right there was actually block cancels. I'm not sure if you all saw that.
You can cancel into blocking.
But so he was attacking, he was starting to swing, and then his
you
character
can
went into a block.
Basically chain attacks much quicker into other attacks. You can cancel an attack immediately into a special attack. And basically we just allow you to kind of have more control over your character. On top of this, we basically have this targeting system that I cannot showcase here. It will automatically kind of face whatever enemy you have.
Clorkin, hello, welcome. Yeah, so is there a downside to always running, or is walking just a preference thing? So there is good reason to walk in certain situations because you need a little bit more fine motor control, and it is useful. It's also kind of used for RP purposes as well. But the reason why they changed it to run first, I think it's just kind of something standard that they always have. So that's what that is. Lunas, Nature Noise, hello. Thank you. All right, let's keep watching.
Fighting, and there's basically a movement assist in play, which will kind of steer you towards the target as well, as long as you're within reasonable distance from them and have you're basically aiming roughly at that direction. This doesn't remove the user control in this case, so we have accurate selection of targets. You can switch between multiple targets if you wish to. I could showcase this actually quickly with some of our debug commands.
Menu.
Just spawning a couple of non-aggressive enemies here.
So I think the Zebians did get a little bit of a name change, although I'm not altogether too certain. These are Zeb alchemists, but it is a dev spawn, so it might just be different in regards to that.
And
okay, so with this right here, what he's showing is the targeting, and how targeting seems to be a lot more fluid and natural feeling, where he's able to switch between targets a lot better. So you can see how he's kind of trying to swap between all the different ones.
Basically, I can target switch between them very easily.
And your character's going to be looking at the one that you're targeting, but obviously if the animation's hitting multiple targets, then you're going to hit multiple targets.
Spell casting. I don't have an offensive spell right now, but after a while I will. We improved spell targeting as well. One of the problems was that people were saying that the in tight space.
So right here, you're going to see, I believe this is Sulka. You're going to see Sulka cast Fireball, and you're going to see over his head a little progress bar that's going to pop up. That's what spells, this applies for other players, it applies for other NPCs, and it applies for you. So everyone, it's now telegraphed very clearly how much time you have from when someone starts casting a spell to when it's going to complete.
It was a bit hard, like if there was a lot of enemies around, it was
so you can see it right there. Moving. Sorry, it's a little covered by.
We improved that
Sulka.
to be much more precise. Also for spellcasting, we introduced spellcasting bars that were visible on the screen. You can see spellcasting bars of your own spells and also the spells of other players and opponents. Basically, when I start casting, I see a casting bar.
So you can see the casting bar on the bottom. All the other players are seeing a casting bar over his nameplate.
And someone else also cast a spell, so we can see it.
Yep. shoot. I changed my gear. Do it in a sec.
So you can see it right here.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, there we
It's
go.
always covering it.
And targeting is
But you
like
get the point.
much more precise now.
And you can cancel
By
the
the way-
spellcast.
You should, by the way, see the loot timer on the ZBN that I killed.
So they're also showing the loot timer. So this is an important one. I am going to ask a question about loot timers in the future, later on in this interview. So we'll be able to talk about that in a bit. But you can see that Sulka did kill the Zebian, and now it's locked. There is a lock timer. So if you don't pick it up after 5 minutes, then it's a free-for-all. Anyone can pick it up.
So here we can see the loot time. I cannot loot the coast because it's
You can see I was in
It
agreement with
wasn't
this for
built by
some
me.
reason. Nodding my head.
we also changed quite a bit of like blocking mechanics. Like right now, let's take one I saw. Blocking still works same as before, but we are now forcing you to walk in mode.
So blocking is going to get intrinsically more strategic, I think, at this point. So Deadbird, the interview literally just released about 15 minutes ago. We're just going over it live on stream, and I'm answering some questions if anyone has them. So the blocking is going to become a lot more strategic because you can't run while you're blocking and you don't regenerate stamina while you're blocking anymore. Now, what we are going to learn is about these spells down here. So this middle spell right here is called the Breath of Balance, and that actually will heal a player's stamina bar. Does nothing for health, but it does heal stamina. So you can kind of think of it like a divine remedy, but for stamina instead. And that's going to be really, really useful because you can have a tank who's sitting there blocking, and then you can have multiple people pumping in more stamina to that player so that they can keep blocking without having to worry about, dropping their block.
When you block him. And also, if you block, you actually do not regenerate any stamina. For some reason, I have infinite stamina right now. But that's what's happening as well.
Hello, y'all. This is Eltarii, and I just wanted to interrupt your regularly scheduled. All right, so really quick, I might as well plug it. The Golden City, the Golden Company, which built the Golden City, that exists in NA East, Danu, and on/around Dolavan. We are actually throwing a really big festival. It's happening on Saturday, this upcoming Saturday. It's a celebration. We do this every year around fall time, and we figured it would be a good time to match it up alongside the servers getting wiped. So this is the fairgrounds kind of actively being made. I'm going to skip over it because I don't want to waste our time with a plug for that. But you should definitely go check out any of the videos that we have coming out today. They all have this little featurette talking about it. But the cool things that are going to be there, we have bobbin for apples. We have there's going to be a golden challenge, which is going to basically, you can think of it like the Amazing Race, but the Golden City edition. It's going to be a huge party. There's going to be a lot of people there. And the coolest thing is that we get to all keep our gear from the current game going into the wipe. So we're going to be giving away magical items for a lot of these contests, and you'll be able to take those items with you going into the next iteration, the Proving Grounds world. So it's actually something worthwhile for players to come and visit and hang out. It's also going to be just a generally good time. We have mazes, a lot of different fair games, and a couple of different climbing jump puzzles, as well as some slides that might be deadly. Totally come and check it out. Let's get back to the interview.
And these are the basics. Should we go and kill some enemies in the PV sites?
Sure. Oh, and by the way, when we're saying that you like the loot timer is based on kills, it's the determining rule is basically the player in the party who caused the most damage gets the loot access. So it's gonna, you can't just like snipe the loot by just doing the last one health.
So for that part, in case you missed it, what Sulka was saying is loot is going to be based off of who did the most damage to a particular mob. So if you're going into a dungeon with multiple parties, there is going to be a barrier between, you know, what group is able to loot what, at least for the first 5 minutes. That is something that we asked them about, but you'll be able to hear the answer there. But at least it's reassuring to know that you're not going to be getting your kill sniped or your loot sniped by someone just, you know, shooting a lone arrow from a million miles away to get a kill. While you guys are walking, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So if you have multiple parties, how does that work?
So here's the question.
Timers, is it just whichever party did the most damage, or is there like a threshold?
Yeah.
And also, ladies and gentlemen, the first question award goes to Eltarii for this interview. That's because I'm here trying to get the answers for all of you, and I'm willing to just stop an interview happening in the middle and get things going. So, you know, let's hear the answer.
Each party essentially will be each party the damage from all the members in each party is tallied together, and when the enemy dies, it's the party that dealt relatively the most damage combined since the enemy last reset. So let's say you attack an enemy, it kills you, it resets, and then it resets kind of that pool.
Yeah. And
Another thing that you might not have noticed because you were busy listening, the the sword that he was holding, that he's still holding right now, that is a two-handed sword. Not all two-handed swords are going. It is just the Zweihander, which is going away. Two-handed swords are still going to be in the Proving Grounds update. So if you have just normal two-handed swords and not the big old Zweihanders, you will still have them.
the other thing you might be noticing is we hugely improved the replication for the player movement. So you can actually maybe see how smoothly like the other people on the screen are actually moving.
So what Sulka was talking about there, just so everyone knows, he's talking about server replication. So the input that each player is experiencing on their own client is now more closely mimicking what everyone else's client is seeing too. So you have Peter, Sulka, and Christian all playing together. Their characters are a lot more close together in reality and what they're seeing. So that was a big one that needed a lot of fixing. I anticipate, so one of the bigger problems in PvP right now is you'd be attacking someone and they were actually kind of somewhere else entirely. That was because server replication was off. So hopefully their fix on this is also carrying over to PvP, so you have a lot more snappy PvP in that way. So potentially no more teleporting for our duels, Batul.
This used to be like pretty choppy, so that even like if you tried to capture like screens where like there were a lot of people walking, like it used to be a bit janky, and like now it's actually like it's a lot smoother. Yeah, so the buildings that we're at, this is one of the like the new PV sites where again like just designed so that it's much easier to engage a smaller number of enemies.
So do note for these smaller camps, we're not seeing that adventurers party again. So we're not seeing. Oh, thanks for the cheer, Batul. So we're not seeing the adventurers party like the, Piras or the, all of the special elite mobs here. We're just seeing kind of the run of the mill mob instead. So something to consider too.
Yeah, so these solo camps are basically
We're tossing
these
all
camps.
at this place.
Yeah. These are for solo content, and these are kind of like a way for players to also game spells if they don't have access to group content. Those spells will be. I can actually demonstrate one of them right now.
All right, so here's all the
it's an
spells.
out-of-combat heal.
So
Allows
Breath
me
of
to kind
Life.
channel a heal, and this will reduce player downtimes when they are doing PvE.
So Breath of Life is a great early game skill just because it helps you get back into the fight without having to spend like healing pots or eat food when you didn't need to otherwise. So Breath of Life is actually pretty nice. What's interesting is it does have a shield right there, so I'm wondering if it gives like a little protection while you're channeling as well.
Early game players don't have any heals.
Also, please don't confuse. So Sulka is that Pater? No, this is Sulka. So Sulka is also channeling the same spell. It's not an AoE spell. It's individual.
This way, game should feel more smooth, much more earlier. Another one is a stamina heal. So this becomes relevant because, like I said, during blocking, stamina is not regenerating anymore. So in dungeon gameplay, you will need to likely have situations where healing stamina to your tank might be beneficial. Other uses could be like gathering.
Can we appreciate the fact that Christian is literally giving a full-blown interview demo right now, and there's a freaking arrow sticking out of his right eyeball?
You just want to heal your stamina quickly and continue. There's probably others as well. Third one is going to be useful for traversal and PvP. So it's a movement speed buff. It gives me increased movement speed and infinite sprint stamina for 7 seconds.
All right, so I think this is one of the new best magic spells in the game. It is the Breath of Joy, and it is a CC breaker. It gives you 7 seconds of just unlimited sprinting, and that is really, really awesome. I think it's going to change how PvP works. Right now, there's a shield bash meta. You will see that it has a 2-minute cooldown timer, so it has 7 seconds. Thiessen, hi, welcome. Thanks for the raid as well. But there is a 7-second timer there. I don't think the 7 seconds are giving you CC invulnerability during that time, but I do think it is giving you, at the very least, a amount of sprinting so you can kind of reposition. So CC break, super great. You could see that the timer on that, let's pull it back to right here.
It gives me increased traversal and PvP. So
it's pretty much an instant cast when it's cast. So that is pretty great. And I think you'll be able to cast it even when you're stunned. So, or snared even, which is really good.
It gives me increased movement speed and infinite sprint stamina.
You can see I am very excited by a CC break.
Removes movement impairing effects. So if you get snared, you can just use that and off you go. Also, all the wildlife have been all the wildlife kind of for skinning have been rebalanced. So previously, some of the, especially the higher tier wildlife, was kind of very hard to do fight solo, and people were using the mesmerize and Pilgrim's Fire tactic to defeat them. We have fixed that abuse, but we also rebalanced all the animals, so it's not needed anymore.
Like Christian, you added more animals so that different difficulty levels. So it's not so by balancing, basically, there's like more animals like on different difficulty tiers. So it's actually with corresponding loot. So just overall, like the hunting experience is better. Like no matter like what the level is that you're doing it.
So one thing worth noting, I know
that there are a couple of other content creators who might be sharing a little bit of misleading information on this one. And I do just want to clarify it. So the way that Mez, Pacify, and Fireball work right now is if you do Mez and then Fireball someone and then Mez them again, they can't do anything. That theoretically is still possible for the first hit. But once you start triggering the Fireball, and I believe that question is going to get asked a little bit in the future here, once you get that second hit off with Fireball and the fire damage starts ticking, it's going to activate and keep that target unmezzed. Now, in addition to that, the Pacify and Mez spells are technically getting a little bit of a nerf when it comes to like the tier 1 and the tier 2 versions of both of those spells. Like Pacify right now is just generically, it's overpowered, especially when you're in a dungeon and you can just pacify an entire dungeon. Even with Pacify 1, like there's no need for Pacify 3 most of the time because Pacify 1 gets the job done just as well. Now, in the update, Pacify 1 isn't going to be as reliable and Pacify 2 isn't going to be as reliable, but maybe a little bit more than Pacify 1. And then Pacify 3 is going to be more similar to what you expect from Pacifies right now. Mezzes, I think, are going to be a little bit similar in that way as well. So the better your spell, the better the effect. You're not just, getting 2 minutes of just pure unadulterated enemies can't attack me anymore. It's going to be adding a little bit more layers to the challenge, but either way, I think it is a welcome change. And I do think that the Mez Fireball combo, where you can just kill literally everything with relatively no actual skill, is something that's not good for gameplay in the game. I know for a lot of people who want to go farm something solo, you really, really like it. I do think that in the future, you will have more than enough spells at your fingertips to be able to try and do that in some way, shape, or form. I just don't think it should be that easy.
Yeah.
Also, why does they not improving PvP Odin's Link? So I do think that they are improving PvP by this update with combat. So I do think that that is something that's coming. Are we finally getting more building facades? Medieval Man of Mystery. I think we are getting a couple of new building pieces. They mention a lot of extra building pieces on top of the ones that we already saw, the grapevines and the new beams that have kind of an archway to them.
We introduced the skinning skill as well, which will allow you to get better as a skinner. So you're gonna get better yields of from the same animals as you do it more.
So in skinning is going to help with getting better or more of certain hides from certain things. It didn't sound like in this particular frame that skinning is going to be linked to the quality that you're getting. So you start off at rough and go all the way up to orange. I think it's more, you're going to get more rough. You're going to get more, animal or, more coarse. So I think that is what it is. And also, hello, Stella. Welcome. I was wondering who that was. So yes, skinning is a new trade skill. It's a new one that's being added. It is technically in the gathering category. So now we have wood cutting, mining, and skinning as the 3 main ones. And we do actually ask them about more coming.
Yeah, then there's, like Soka mentioned, there's plenty of new building pieces. I actually don't have the number, but there's quite a few building pieces. Both some that are like brand new in kind of like theme and usability, but there's also the different building sets that we had before were not completely consistent. There were like some missing pieces and some that where you couldn't really build the same kind of structures. So all of them have kind of been filled out with some of the pieces that they were missing. There's also like curved beams, vines, more stuff.
So what Peter said there is that they are expanding out all of the different build pieces. So that's great that you asked that question, Stella. They are expanding out. So all the current tile sets that we have, I think they're adding a couple of things that seem to be missing across the board, so that we're going to be able to build just as unique with the twigs and sticks as we can with the rocks and stones. Odin's Link, why is there suggestion to box someone in if someone is stupid, and why have they made it so that you can't destroy other people's buildings? Just makes the whole game worse. I would recommend Odin's to go back and watch the Alpha 2 interviews that are on this channel that we had with both Peter and Solka, and they will definitely give you more information for their design direction of the game, and that might be a better place for you to start, because there are some changes that are coming in now and that they're working towards in the future, and you'll get some of that info. Also, they do kind of touch on some areas in the game that you might be able to destroy other people's buildings in. So we'll just have to wait till we get to that part of the interview.
Like that.
I like this lull.
Was that for the combat side or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Before we close up the combat side,
Yep.
I have a question about Mez Fireball. Like,
So really quickly, there were 3 content creators here, and a journalist. I needed to blur out the journalist, so occasionally you'll see a blurred out slot. The person speaking right now, that's Damone Kim, and then we also have Nina, who was joining us as well. So just a FYI, if you see someone blurred out, it was because we also had some of the more written word publicizers for Pax Day that were in this call as well, and we're just trying to be respectful of their wishes to not, have their likeness projected across the world. But this question is now Damone asking about Fireball and the Mez Fireball combo.
is the plan for that system to stay the same, or are we building or moving away from that?
Mess Fireball is basically right now what happens is that the damage over time effect will break the Mesmerize. So
Timeless, this is a new interview that we're watching. It just came out maybe 25 minutes ago.
that's not possible anymore. Also, Pacify has been nerfed. So Pacify, especially the lower ranks, were like way too powerful in terms of stamina or cost, and also in terms of like how much of the visibility range of the enemies it disabled. Right now they are being rebalanced so that like higher tier pacifiers are still very useful, but the lower tier ones you need to be more careful when you pass enemies.
I love it. Let's go.
So for this one in particular, like they said, Pacify is getting kind of a rework where the earlier versions of Pacify, like Pacify 1 and 2, it's not going to necessarily restrict the total visibility of a mob. It's only going to restrict certain like areas around it. So it might be, if there's a cone where they can't see you, it shortens the cone a bit, and then the higher tier pacifies will completely close the cone within a certain distance or outside of a certain distance. But yeah, that's kind of what that is. I did have a quick question with regards to weapon swapping as well. And right now kind of the meta is to just have 14 weapons on your character, and you just swap between the specials that are used. Has anything been done to kind of address that, or is that an intended kind of feature?
It's not intended. Right now in this update, that is still probably the meta. There will be a fix coming to that later.
All right, y'all. We're going to get some more applause here. Not for me, but for Mainframe. So this has been kind of a big problem in PvP because it really makes things kind of non-creative, and it's really just if you have your entire bar filled with weapons, then you just keep weapon swapping and using your special abilities to slam everyone until you win the game, right? So if you're maxed out, if you're a weapon master and you have all your weapons maxed out, you just, swap to your sword, do your control left click, swap to your, mace, do your control left click, and just keep doing that over and over and over again, and you stack it. The question I was asking was, are you going to make it so there's some kind of restriction to weapon swapping where players can't do that, right? And what Christian said is, hey, we don't want it to be that way, but it's still going to be that way, at least for a period of time. The reason why I said Mainframe gets an applause is because after that question was asked, within 24 hours, I got a message coming back to me from the dev team saying, hey, by the way, remember that question you asked? We were able to make the change now. And that change, so what Christian said was they plan on changing it in the future, but he didn't detail what that change was. Now, in the Proving Grounds update, when you swap weapons, there is going to be a 10-second cooldown timer for the special attack that exists on that. So that doesn't mean you can't swap between weapons in combat. You still can, but you're not going to be able to swap between 14 of them. You're only going to be able to swap between maybe like 2 or 3, or back and forth between a couple, right? So that is really, really big. And like I said, applause to Mainframe for making that change. That's super good for both PvP, but also makes the combat in PvE a lot more dynamic. And it's just a small change that I'm really glad they were able to make. Cool. Thank you.
Any question?
Sorry. If anyone else has questions too, feel free to pop in. I know that another kind of area, more on the no one was talking, and I didn't want to, like, at the very start, the part that you guys didn't hear at the very start, when we were talking before the interview actually began, they were like, hey, give people time to ask questions and do all of that stuff. So I had like 500 questions that I wanted to ask for you all. So I was trying to hold back, but I also, have a duty to all of you to make sure that I'm asking the questions that I know you all want to hear the answers to. So then I kind of started just butting in and saying, you know what, if no one else is going to ask questions, I'm just going to keep asking them. PvP side, half the spells in game are not currently functioning on PvP with regards to like Mez, or Pacify or anything like that. There was talks, that there would be some kind of maybe like a CC cooldown for players or something like that. Is that still something that's coming? Will we be able to use Mez in this update or in the future on PvP? So just to clarify the question, because I was still formulating it while I was flapping my lips, the question basically was, we have Mez and Pacify, like there's and Haunting Memories. We have several of the spells that exist in game right now that are just not usable in PvP. So PvP right now, you have your healing spells and you have a fireball spell, and that's pretty much it, right? Well, now we do have the CC break, which is great. So once every combat engagement, typical fights between players can last between 1 to 3 minutes. So you will get to use every engagement. You'll probably be able to have one CC break, so use it at the right time. But that is, which I think is the right number. I don't think that's a bad number. I think that's the right one. But the question was, are we going to be, since now we have a CC break, where my brain was going is, okay, they added a CC break spell. Are they adding now the ability to mez people in PvP?
because I had some serious questions with regards to that if they were.
Using Mesmerize in PvP is not something that's not possible right now. There has been some thought about doing diminishing returns for basically crowd control in PvP, but it remains to be like seeing how effective those are against then to be, have Mesmerize usable in PvP. So right now I would say the plan is not to have it usable in PvP, but it might change in the future.
Yeah. And I guess with like having the stun break spell as well, that I think adds a lot of new counterplay between shield bashing and all of that in PvP anyways with CC.
So there's another thing, especially for PvP, that we added is that if you block the damage of whatever is causing harm to you by 50% or more, it also doesn't or negates the kind of like other negative benefits from the spell or ability.
Y'all, it's just win after win after win. Okay, so what Ostrich is saying, what Christian is saying right here, okay? Just for me to break this down for all of you. If you block half the damage in one of these particular things, like a shield bash, let's say you're using a shield bash level 1 because you're a pleb like me. And when you do that, Batul, thanks for the cheer. When you do that, then what you end up with is if you block half of the damage, no effect. You still take the damage, but you don't take the effect. If someone comes in there and they try and jab you with a spear, and normally that would stagger you, but you had your shield up and you blocked it, doesn't count. So that means, what does that mean? That means if I have my shield out and I block someone else's shield bash, it doesn't stun me. It's so perfect. It's literally the smallest freaking change. It is so small, but it is so freaking good. I mean, I'm probably a little too excited about it, but but these are the kinds of small tweaks and adjustments that I think Mainframe is going to keep on making, and it's going to incrementally improve things. It's kind of a no-brainer. If I have my shield out, and now we have the ability to start faking people out in PvP. I can sit there and be attacking and make someone think I'm in an attack animation and then swap into a shield block. And if they're trying to shield bash me at that point in time and I block their shield bash, then if I block half the damage of the shield bash, I'm not stunned. Now I have them and they get shield bashed and I freaking win. That's the kind of counterplay that needs to exist in PvP, and they need to keep on building on top of those things. But this update, just with those small changes, are going to dynamically change how PvP works in Pax Dei. I mean, mark my words, it's going to be better. It's not going to change everything. There's still a lot of improvements. Mainframe's not out of the woods, but these changes are super, super duper well welcomed. So that's what that is. Let's see. Nico Fluffbeard, brother, I get that you really like PvP, but this game is in early development. Now is the time to build up, not destroy. Give them time. What are we talking about? Or are we talking about Odin's Link? If there is only destructible in certain areas, players might stash loot elsewhere, losing the real PvP loot throughout. Okay, got it. Now that makes sense. Yeah, so we'll talk about the PvP area in a little bit. There's a couple of left-sided questions that come, and they kind of gave away a little bit of something, which was great. But yeah, we'll talk about that particular part, Odin's, in a little bit. But this particular change for combat, yeah, this is going to be great. Now, Batul, damn, those stun maces are going to be crap. Not necessarily, because every time you block, guess what is happening? You're losing your stamina, and guess what? If you keep on holding block, you don't recharge stamina anymore. So
you're going to get out positioned as well, because when you're right clicking, you now are forced to walk. Meanwhile, if you're just, with your sword out or whatever, and you're not blocking, you can run around that enemy. You can get out of position. I do think that shield blocking has a cone. So if you get behind someone, they can't block you if they're blocking the wrong way. I think. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Right now, it's been really impossible to do that, but I think not so anymore. Yeah, combat should feel a lot more like chess. If you time the stun mace well, like Eltarii is saying, they can be a very viable spell. Oh yeah, there's a cone. Perfect. Great. Yeah. So anyways, sorry, I got a little excited there, but
like
really
for
cool
example,
changes.
The one-handed spear special does a snare. But if you block that special, the snare isn't being applied to you anymore. So blocking becomes much more important in PvP. Also, regarding the damage balancing, you notice that all of our weapons have like a combos. So the last hit is always heavier than the first hits of combo. So blocking that last hit is going to be more important because it does much more damage than the others.
It's just like win after win after win with these like small combat tweaks. So what you heard there right now, all the combat that we're doing, every attack that you do in an attack chain are all just the same damage for the most part. Now you're going to see a much larger difference between the initial 3 attacks versus the 4th and final attack. The only thing that would make this at all better is if I can click and hold and force a heavy attack as opposed to doing light attacks and then a heavy attack, because that is going to be amazing. And there are going to be benefits to starting a combo, doing the first, second, and third hit in a combo, block canceling out of your combo chain, and then going back into 1, 2, and 3, just as much as it's going to be useful to go 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the heavy hit. But if you know that someone's expecting you to bring out a 4th and heavy hit and that they're going to block it, then there is a benefit to you doing 1, 2, and 3 block canceling out while they're blocking you, and you can use that to swap to another weapon. You can use that to do anything else, but they have their shield out, they're blocking, as opposed to doing any of that damage. So I think there is some importance there.
Also a tactic that players need to be aware when fighting in PvP.
And then as far as blocking goes, are there any plans to introduce any type of like counterattack or dodge or other mechanics to amplify the expertise in combat?
So this question, Damone was asking, are there going to be any other types of defensive abilities like dodge or counter attacks to go alongside all of these things? Let's see what their answer is.
So defensive abilities are something that we want to introduce in some form at some point in the future. But right now, like immediate plans, there's no plans to like we don't know what the plan for that is. Like the details of that, it's still kind of in the flux.
So what they said there is they do intend to have something like that, but they just don't have a solid plan for what it is yet. So there's no point in really talking more about it.
So some kind of defensive abilities for players is in the plans.
Awesome.
And this might be a too technical of a question, but for spell canceling, I know that some players really like to have the ability to queue up their movement while the spell is channeling. Is there going to be some way, because it looks like any kind of movement input is going to cancel your spell. Is there any way that you could turn that off and just make it like block is to cancel things and your movement might not do that? So players can still, for those people really trying to get precision in there, the first second that they can move after casting that spell, or is it going to be more, you have to be able to time it right, and that's part of the player's skill for that? So another nuanced question from the professional gamer here. So what I was particularly asking with this question was, hey, if there is some kind of, when you're casting a spell and you move, right now that cancels the spell. So what that means is while you are channeling a spell, if you are moving or if you put an input too soon, then it cancels the spell. You could be at like 0.99999 or 99.999%. And if you move, it cancels the spell. So that, I think, is going to be a little jarring for players. And maybe it's not, maybe it is, but I do think that it probably will be a little jarring. So the important thing there, what I was asking was, hey, it's great if some players want to keep it, but is there potentially a way that we can put a toggle where the only way that you can cancel out is like right click to cancel a spell casting action, as opposed to having it be WASD spacebar or whatever else? Like, because at the end of the day, if you're sitting there casting a fireball, you're channeling it, and you're like, oh shoot, I need to move this way, but I still want to get the spell off before I move, then you're going to be holding like S and D while your spell is channeling. And then the second that it channels and the second that your character exits the animation and can move, then you start moving in that direction, as opposed to what it will be right now, where if you hit that button and you start moving, canceled. So it might just be a learning curve. And that's what I was asking. Like, is it supposed to be that? And we'll see what their answer is here.
So of course we can think about like adding options for players that would prefer to customize the experience, but I would say that I think those players would do themselves a disservice if they would lock themselves in, at least in PvP situations.
So then I actually like this response. I don't always have the right answers, and after he answered, I do kind of also see the direction that he's coming from as well, in that if you were PvPing and you needed to reposition and you weren't able to use WAS and D to just immediately cancel and move, then that would be really unfortunate. Now, my counter to that would be, well, if it's right click to cancel and I can turn off the canceling, he just might not have heard that particular part where I said, oh, change it to right click to cancel.
I think they're gonna benefit from being able to cancel out of movement. But if there's a lot of demand for customizing that, like disabling movement cancels, we can consider it.
And then I have a question too, especially as we start moving into strategy with combat and fighting in between like server nodes or zones. Let's say I'm running from somebody that's shooting at me and I happen to cross a server zone. Is that going to cancel out the projectile that's firing, or is that like a mechanic that we would be able to abuse essentially so we don't take damage by crossing in between server clusters?
Okay, so what what was being asked right here had more to do with, there's server nodes, there's different places where servers are, and when you shoot an arrow, like if you're getting shot and you know that there's a node or you're between nodes, the projectile won't carry across the node, and you might be able to exploit that in a certain way. I think the devs heard that and they took it more as like crossing zones. So a zone is different than a node. Like we know from the Unreal Fest, nodes are certain segments of an area that turn into an Unreal server based on player population. And you can have multiple, layers of that. Now, we don't know how big that Unreal server is, if it's a whole area or if it's not. But either way, I do think that there is kind of a level there for that. Thanks for the follow. Now, yeah, I think this is kind of more of an exploity question. I don't know. They try and give an answer for it though.
Solka, this is probably to you.
I like how Pater just bam hit that mute button. He's like, I'm not answering this one.
So if you're doing PvP across, like, basically right at the zone boundary.
Yeah.
So I guess currently, yeah, I guess like in even the Lioness, you can get to that situation if you're like actually like lagged and you run into the portals. I guess like in the future, basically the what we're trying to do with the level design is actually like minimize the amount of combat that actually happens at the borders, because we know that it's like the zone transition is like inherently unpredictable exactly how the client and server behaves like when you're crossing over, because like they need to manage the state transfer between the two. So I guess basically it sounds like we just need to make sure that it just doesn't happen.
So their answer to this is pretty like as good as the game developer could probably answer. And what that is hey, we need to pretty much make it so if you're at a zone transfer line or something like that, that we really disincentivize players from engaging in combat there. It's not a favorable, area or something like that. Really not much more that they can talk about though.
Like look more into like just really making sure that there's no compensations on the borders, because it's just super difficult to manage.
So for those of you in chat talking about the zones and the potential areas of conflict, I do think at this point in time in the interview, we are coming up on some questions you might want to listen to.
But yeah, I guess having said that, I guess we don't want the zone borders to be something where like you can actually like escape easily, like by just like running for extended periods of time. So yeah.
Yeah, because like if somebody's like, let's say I'm taking arrow fire, and then all I have to do is cross the border, and it nullifies the projectiles, and then I could just go back in and continue fighting, right? So that's what we were curious about.
Other question? Don't hesitate. Nina, Ava, maybe not on combat, but if you have questions on other topics.
Yeah, I have a question on another topic, actually about TPs. Yeah, the question is, we actually have a lot of TPs, right? But sometimes it feels that it's not kind of useful, because you are somewhere and you have to walk like 40 minutes. And it's like if there is something that you can TP from somewhere to another place, it's going to be a lot.
God's Silent Grace, I can answer that for you right now. There was no mention of the sitting emote being in the game yet. They might have forgot it though.
Better, rather than walking 40 to an hour.
So Nina's question here is one that a lot of us are wondering, and there's a lot of TPing points around, but there's a lot of walking that is still being done, and she wants to kind of ask them, hey, like, how are we improving commuting times right now?
Is there any plans?
Do you want to cover that? Because incidentally, we're just talking about this today.
Yeah. There are plans. There are plans for that.
Okay, interesting.
Not ready to share too much more about that, but yeah, there are plans for fast travel.
Yeah.
So we do squeeze it out a little bit from them in a little bit.
Said earlier, like fast travel is really hard design space for us, because we don't want to trivialize the travel either, because the fact that actually there are distances, it should matter, especially for the game economy. So what we'll probably do is like any fast travel is going to come with the constraints on how much you can actually carry with you when you travel fast. So for example, like if you're actually going somewhere to get resources, what's probably going to happen is that at the beginning of a game session, you might be able to fast travel somewhere and then play.
What's he doing there?
Like if you're actually carrying something valuable, you might actually want to run
I was
back.
texting.
So we're not going to be like goods transportation is probably going to continue to be something that actually like the things are partly valuable, because it might be difficult to get something from where you are, and you either need to go and get it yourself, or maybe with the upcoming changes, like maybe pay somebody to get it for you.
So a couple of things that are worth noting there. They said, yes, they're working on fast travel systems. also know they want goods to be transported by foot. And they also mentioned potentially getting paid or paying someone to do those travels for you. So movement of goods is going to be an important thing. And there's going to be stuff that correlates to all of that. I think it might be something similar to Valheim, where you might be able to set up movement between places, but there's going to be certain things that aren't allowed through the portal, or maybe you're only allowed a certain number of inventory spaces or slots that can actually teleport with you, kind of thing. They do mention a little bit further down the line, but it's something that they're actively talking about. And like they said at the very beginning, he literally said this is something that they had a meeting about the morning of recording.
Yeah.
To continue maybe on the same topic, but I remember when you had spoken about the church, you said that with the blessing there would be also some TP and so on. I fully understand for the economy that it's not good if I can just TP to the seller or the buyer. I'm not talking about that, but today really, which is really painful, is when you have to go to a dungeon, which is on the other side, on the other map, or maybe to be able to teleport on the plot on some clan members and so on. I think we are not talking about the same thing. I understand we must keep the game quite not too easy, but at the same time, there are a few situations, honestly, especially the dungeons, or maybe to go to the Lyoness when you want to PvP for half an hour only. Honestly, there are, I think, a lot of things we could do without going too far.
So one thing I would also like to mention as well is in one of the news articles that came out with early access, there was one thing that was mentioned where there was potentially items that you could have in your inventory that automatically triggered you for being PvPable, like no matter where you are or maybe throughout the wilderness. So carrying certain things might actually make it so you are now a target for PvP to other players. They didn't mention that here, but I just wanted to bring it up. Now, this particular question was more tied into another part of that same article that was talking about churches and the teleportation miracles that were mentioned there, and this whole grace system. And it basically is saying, hey, it's different. It's a different system than just being able to fast teleport around everywhere, like in New World or Guild Wars or something like that, but have it have a cost and have it have importance and still make it important to travel.
Yeah, exactly. And the kind of the design space where we're thinking about TP and fast travel is exactly what you mentioned. But that's still kind of that's essentially what we are kind of that we're actively planning right now. And sort of the church and religious system comes with a limited currency that you could use. So you could if you, let's say your clan has a base on the other side of the province or in the neighboring province, and you every now and then need to go back and forth, or you need to get to a dungeon that's on the other side of the map. And then that would be a utility that you could use to do those things.
Is that something?
Maybe. Sorry.
Is that something that you anticipate others will be able to utilize to get to you as well? So, if
you mean like a rally or a muster or something like that?
Yeah, like if I have a group of friends that are in a different clan in a different area, they can kind of go to that same point, kind of thing.
Yes. So the fact that I mentioned clan there didn't mean that doesn't mean that it was clan specific or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what Peter was talking about there specifically was, I said, is there going to be some way for us to muster together, maybe meet at a certain location, be able to go to a place where we all gather from different parts of the world, and get to that one point so that we can start an adventure and go from there. And what Pedro was talking about was, hey, it's not linked to clans. There's going to be other things to do with it.
Okay, and speaking of guilds and player-driven content, How do we see guild dynamics and territorial control evolving as the game matures?
So I guess that's something we're actively talking about right now. And the I'm actually kind of hoping that we would be able to give you a bit of a roadmap soon.
Okay, so the question here that Damone was asking them is what's the systems for controlling territory and all of that? For anyone who's wondering, knighthoods are not going to be in the Proving Grounds update. Same with parishes. Those aren't going to be in it. They're talking about something potentially far off in the future. I think they're more in the design level phase of this, and it's not something that we're going to see anytime, at least this year. It's probably going to be something coming. If I had to guess, just based on how they were talking, we wouldn't see maybe an initial implementation until at the earliest spring, but my guess is probably even more closer to summer.
But the direction that we're basically heading is like we, as we said a bit earlier, like we so what the way we're thinking about PvP and like basically the kind of warfare is that the clans
Hey, Dan.
are mostly about the kind of the peaceful loops of like building in the heartlands and like the basically building villages, and the feudal organizations related to war actually are a separate organization on the side of these. So we're obviously like a lot of clans are going to be like, so in some cases it's essentially going to be the same organization, like both on the PvP side and the same clan building village. But this is a parallel organization basically on the side, and you can choose to join that regardless of what you, like your clan is actually doing regarding PvP. And we do want to have this basically like mechanisms by which they can like compete meaningfully, and like there's probably going to be like building mechanics outside of the heartlands that are going to be related to actually like the competition between the feudal organizations or at least players who are basically want to live in more dangerous areas.
Okay, so this one was interesting, and I didn't think we were going to get something out of them about this, but this has to do with building outside of PvP or outside of home valleys, basically. And what it sounds like, first and foremost, if your clan isn't one that's going to be PvPing, it's knighthoods. There's going to be a feudal system where you can, regardless of what your clan is doing, you can go and pledge your allegiance, become a soldier to a knight. A knight can pledge their allegiance to another knight, and eventually it becomes a barony, and baronies can pledge their allegiance to each other and eventually become a kingdom or something like that. There's going to be some kind of stratified system for this. But, and that's something that we knew, but what Sulka just said was that there's going to be some kind of building mechanic where players who prefer to live in more dangerous areas of the world, where buildings, there's going to be some sort of building dynamic or something along those lines that will allow them to be building in more risky places. So Odin, you were talking about having destructible buildings. I think this is what Sulka is talking about here. And there is some kind of potential warfare that can fare around this. Now, I like the idea. I like the idea of potentially being able to choose your risk level. Maybe you build your city in an area that has a little bit more risk, but there's a little bit more reward. Maybe you choose to build your city in a place that has a lot of risk, but a lot of reward. And for player groups that are able to kind of, tread that balance, you're going to see some really good benefits to your group by having that. So that was a really exciting little tidbit to hear about. And I think people should be excited about stuff like that coming in the future.
But we're actually coming up with deciding on like some of the mechanics that we're going to be starting to implement like the first in that space. So not coming in the next few months, but very actively being like actually designed right now.
So it's being designed. It's probably in the iteration phase. They're doing this, finding out what we want, finding out what they want, finding out what the problems are, and they're going to be converging to get to that first point, and then they'll start developing a little bit further out from there. Simple development timeline. I think what Solka just said was there's going to be a couple of months before we really see much movement on that. But he also mentioned at the very beginning of this conversation that they do plan on releasing a roadmap talking about it in the near future. So last time when early access came out, they gave us a roadmap. I think it's about time. A lot of that stuff on the roadmap is getting fulfilled, and there's going to be another roadmap to come where it talks about more.
That's cool.
If I can have a very important and central question, will the trees continue to grow again and again and again on our plots?
So this was a great question as well. Are trees going to be able to grow over and over and over again on our plots? Really pertinent question. A lot of people want to build in certain areas and they can't because they're covered in forests. I understand it. I have the feels.
In this update, I think so, yes. But we're actually the things we're looking into is like probably block trees from growing on your plot. We're looking into, and we're looking into right now like the entire plot blocks, all the resources being like spawning like on the entire area of the plot, and we actually might be able to change that so that the like only the part that they built on the plot blocks the resources. You theoretically you can still like you can start to build on the like side of a lake and like still actually like have some of the clay appear next to your house.
And related to
So that was a big one too, where they are working. They might have a way where they can have it where if nodes aren't physically having building pieces placed on them, that they will still continue to show up on your plots. They also said that there might be a potential to like on-off switch some things maybe as well, like maybe in the plot menu. So really cool to hear that.
the trees, conversely also allowing you to plant trees basically where you want them for like aesthetic reasons and or for farming.
Farming and aesthetic planting. Something that's very
when
exciting.
Maybe the herbalist will be finished. In fact, I suppose, because there are still it's herbalism, yeah, I think so, the English name for that, and the jeweler also, the missing professions, I suppose, for the plant trees, it will be connected with the herbalism profession.
Sorry, I didn't catch
I think
the
he's
question.
referring to the crossbow because the crossbow was removed before.
Oh, okay. So this was a funny one. What was being asked was what's going on with the herbalism skill. We were talking about arborists to begin with, and then we were talking about herbalism. There was no mention of crossbows getting added to the game.
No, sorry, I was still on the trees, but maybe the audio is not good. I was saying we still have missing a few professions like herbalism, I don't know the English word for that. So I suppose that it's connected with planting trees and replanting the forest.
Potentially connected to that, yeah. But but like you mentioned, jewelry, herbalism, to some extent alchemy is like fairly slim. Like some of the professions are either sort of missing or not very, very well fleshed out yet. We do want to give those attention and do them really well. And like we have some progression, of course, with like tree chopping and mining and prospecting. We're just starting to add like a bit of progression for like gathering, but it's not there yet.
Kind of on the topic of that as well, with the addition of skinning, do you see like similar kind of gathering professions for things like gathering flax or other types of resources? And then also on the flip side of that too, armor smithing and blacksmithing and weaponsmithing have a lot of love, where it seems like there's a very clear, you go and mine, that's a mining discipline. Then you have your blacksmithing, which kind of refines it, and then you have your armor smithing, which makes it. Is that kind of a tree that you're planning for things like leatherworking or tailoring as well?
Yeah.
So the question that I was asking here was basically, hey, armor smithing is like the end point. Blacksmithing is like the middle point, the refining. And then mining is the gathering. So you have gathering, you gather, you refine, you make. So I was asking, are the other professions like tailoring or leatherworking going to have something similar where you gather, you have a gathering skill or herbalism skill or something like that, and then you refine it so it's like weaving, a weaving skill, and then you make it tailoring. Leatherworking has something similar where now it has skinning, and then so that's your gathering. Then you have leatherworking or something like that. Maybe it's a leather making or tanning would be the refining, and then you would have the leatherworking as the thing that you make the armor for.
Yeah, I mean, they may not necessarily be completely symmetrical, but yes, like for these different parts of the process, we like it to be like give people avenues to be like specialize more. That's kind of what I was referring to with like, yeah, giving gathering a bit more progression and make it a bit more interesting. Because right now you're basically just walking around picking up stuff from the ground, and there's not very much like skill or character progression involved, other than just like game knowledge and understanding where to find them.
So not no, but also not necessarily yes either to that question. So they are planning on adding a couple more things, I think, to flesh them out, but not every profession is going to necessarily have that, trifecta of you gather, you refine, you make.
So with that being said, like what is like your ideal vision, from a development standpoint as to how you guys want players to be able to influence the world
company
and shape
dog
their own
sees something
stories
outside.
within Pax Dei?
That's pretty broad.
That's a good question.
But I think the basically a lot of that the discussion we're having over the like how we do the bigger organizations of like allowing
See you later,
people
Phoenix.
to grow like social organizations bigger than the clans, and like the clans to join together and like in some cases compete over like
You're very welcome.
controlling pieces of land outside the heartlands. Obviously it's going to hugely affect how the individual world or like the shards feel.
Hey,
because
Undead Swamp, thank you for the sub.
Probably feel different depending on who's actually leading them and like how they choose to play. And so the long-term vision we'd had for the game for a very long period of time actually revolves a lot about the giving players the capability of like actually like forming these like large like kingdom level basically organizations, and how you choose to actually use them to shape how the other people need to play the game in that world.
So let's roll that back here really quick.
Standpoint as to how you guys want players to be able to influence the world and shape their own stories within Pax.
So Damone was asking, how does Mainframe want players to be able to shape their own stories in Pax Dei?
Pax Dei.
And hey, Holy Dan.
That's pretty broad.
That's a good question.
But I think the
So out of the interviewers, Damone was definitely asking more like really broad, kind of lofty, really big questions. And because I noticed he was asking a lot of those, I was trying to just be more like zoomed in and focused on very particular things that had more to do with, a certain area or something like that. Anita, thank you for the sub over on YouTube. For anyone who's watching on Twitch, we have all of these videos posted on YouTube. You should go check it out over there. Drop a sub. We will be posting more videos all the time. We've been covering Pax Dei for like almost 2 years at this point. So, yeah, we like Pax Dei a lot here.
like
Okay. So sorry, got off track here. Question: how are players going to affect stories in the game? Sulka is going to go the route of, hey, kingdoms, players can place plots, things and stuff. Let's see what he says.
discussion we're having over the like how we do the bigger organizations of like allowing you to grow like social organizations bigger than the clans, and like the clans to join together and like in some cases compete over like controlling pieces of land outside the heartlands. Obviously it's going to hugely affect how the individual world or like the shards feel, because those organizations are maybe like probably feel different depending on who's actually leading them and like where how they choose to play. And so the like the long-term vision we'd had for the game for a very long period of time actually revolves a lot about the giving players the capability of like actually like forming these like large like kingdom level basically organizations, and how you choose to actually use them to shape how the other people need to play the game in that world.
Okay, so a couple of interesting things that were mentioned there. Sulka was making it kind of sound like so there's kind of a tiered structure, and he's talking about things at like a kingdom level, and he's talking about organizations, and specifically what he said is server to server, some of these organizations are going to feel different. All right. And I'm going to be picking words apart here, which might be me, looking too closely into the tea leaves. So take it with a grain of salt. But talking about organizations and saying each server is going to be different based on the players who are, ruling over them or running them. To me, that means something like, for example, the parish system, talking about popes. I think that means it's going to be a pope. Same with kingdoms. Kingdoms, maybe you can have multiple kingdoms, right? That kind of rule over certain areas. Maybe the players determine those areas. Maybe they're kind of preset and you become a king of them by conquering certain like points of interest or something like that. But either way, the way that he was talking about players controlling it and them being different across servers makes me feel like some of these organizations are more static in terms of their organizational structure. So, for the parish, if there's only one pope, then that would make sense, because then when we talk about, Danu versus Demeter or something in that realm, then, two current servers, the experience that players have on Danu is going to be intrinsically different than Demeter, because the person who's the Pope in Danu is different than the person who's the Pope in Demeter. So there's going to be a different kind of, level, I guess, of how people are experiencing the game based on these higher level positions that players can assume based on gameplay, is what I heard. Now, there's obviously going to be a lot of ways to affect those things. He also mentioned players fighting over spots that they can build in. He said spots that they can build in or areas that they can build in, not, they can choose anywhere. I think these might be spots based on kind of how he's talking. Again, tea leaves. But I do think that, my opinion has been for the longest time that PvP, controlling areas like castles and stuff like that, or something to that tune, is going to be something that's more concentrated to maybe particular maps, or maybe even particular areas of a map, where that is a place where players can build. It's got a set area, set ways that you can build in it, and that's where you can build. And if you build there, then there's something that you have to put in that space, like a flag or something. And if another player group comes in and they're able to get to that flag and tear it down and replace it with their own, then now they own that area. So I think it might be something like that. Again, these are tea leaf readings. Don't look into it altogether too far. There's indefinitely cracks in even what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And is that going to... Go ahead.
No, just real quick. To me, it boils down very much down to like, when you go, like when you meet someone and like, some years after playing the game.
Yeah. So, Holy Dan, the reason why I'm saying potentially not, again, like I said, tea leaves, but the reason why I'm saying potentially not is
that there would actually be one pope, because the church system is this static structure where players aren't necessarily making up their own religions. They are all participating in a religious structure of the church in Pax Dei. I do think that there will be other religious organizations, like, druidic ones, or maybe even demonic ones and stuff like that. But I don't know. Based on what he said right there, it even, still kind of reinforced what I was thinking of, like, if someone could just make any kind of religious order and everyone had all of their own unique religious orders, because even like a solo player had their own unique religious order, then yeah, the game's gonna be different, but it's just gonna be basically a reskinned version of a clan. Thanks for the follow. That's why I'm saying, like, if everyone can't just make this thing, then yeah, that is that thing that you have to play into the system, then that is going to be different server to server. That's the only way it can really be different server to server, where you're actually mentioning that that's kind of an aspect or a feature of it. Because otherwise, if it's just like clans, that's like saying, hey, we have clans in game, so every server that you're on is going to be different. It's like, well, no crap. Like, of course it will, because my clan is on this server and that clan isn't. So it's different. It's not something that you would say necessarily. So, yeah. I guess my thought was like, someone might have a church in Ancien and another group had one in Innisgallia, and they both went through a progression mechanic that might both be pope but warring with each other, so sort of like kingdoms. I still think something like that does exist. I think when we're talking about it, if it was a unified structure, then both of those churches are ones that are trying to build up in a pool. And if everyone, it's like a competition. That, church in Innisgallia, if the church in Innisgallia is, accruing grace at a certain rate and their grace pool is super large, or they have X number of followers that are, all attending, the, parishioners or whatever that are, tied in with that church, then that church has more sway. And maybe you spend grace to vote for who the next pope is. And every so often, all of these churches gather together, and, depending on the level of grace that churches have, maybe you can get cardinals or bishops or, different levels of priests, and they all kind of add together into this one unified system. So the cardinal from Innisgallia is still tied in to the cardinal from Ancien, but the difference is that they're both parts of the same system. They're just in different areas, and the cardinal that's in Innisgallia and the cardinal that's in Ancien are probably both competing to be nominated as the next pope or something like that. But again, they actually don't talk about it much more past this point. So I was just using it as an example of why I found it interesting, but no point in like going too far in it, because nothing that I say or anyone else says is going to be right regardless. It's too far off.
Reminiscing about it and telling stories, like all of the stories about the people who played the game and like what they did and how it was different from somebody else. And it's not really about the game. Like, don't really want the game to be in the way of like people telling their own stories. And so the societies and things that happen on one server to the next are like as unself-similar as possible.
The anti-pope of the Dark Lord.
And that's kind of, I think, why the building system shines really well, because it makes everything is visibly different and visibly unique. When you're playing the game, you feel, you feel very much like you're doing something that nobody else has done, because you're building so different. That's kind of how we think of the social structures and how people progress through the game in their kind of, in their feudal organizations or clans or other kind of meta structures like the churches and whatnot, that people have enough kind of like a simple, interesting rule set to play with that allows them a lot of freedom and agency to do, to have like unique experiences that are cool and shared with other people.
So what Peter was talking about there, he said, hey, game systems should not get in the way of the main gameplay experience of players. And what he was talking about there was when we sit and talk about, those age-old games that, I'm a millennial, so I actually can now look back and reminisce on early games, much like the predecessors before me. And don't worry, younglings, you'll get there too. But in recalling the age-old memories of games like Star Wars Galaxies, or the initial versions of World of Warcraft or EverQuest, those are the ones that I grew up on, and I know people have similar stories for Ultima Online and even further back, right? For that though, when you go and recall these stories, you're not thinking about the game system. You're not really processing in that way. You're thinking of the players and how they acted and how they did things in the game. Mainframe understands that, and they want it to be more of a they want the game systems to get out of the way of allowing those stories to be the ones that are told. So really cool in that regard.
I know that.
Also, another thing that he did say as well is he said meta structures, which might be a new form of terminology that Mainframe uses. And then he made reference to churches specifically as one of these meta structures that can exist.
The answer was also really broad and didn't give you like a specific thing, maybe.
No,
That's
it's
kind
perfect.
of that's very much how we think about the game, and when we're really kind of evaluating what features and what efforts are worth it doing. If that we're, sometimes we need to curate a little bit, the experience that you have, but we try to do it as little as possible, and rather have try to make simple rules that allow people to have unique experiences that don't feel very much curated.
It makes sense because, especially when we saw the Unreal showcase with the modular armor and the customization,
Yeah.
Is that a similar approach that you guys want to take to skill building and essentially class formation with the player base?
Maybe Christian, if you want to.
Okay, so this question, I think Damone was asking, how do you anticipate skill formation to be a thing in the game? I think it's pretty much what the question is, right?
What was the question, sorry? I was too focused on playing, actually.
Oh no, because the way that you guys are like, you do the building system, right, which is amazing, right? And you have all these modular features.
There's the official
and
announcement.
then when you guys showcase the armor customization as well at the Unreal showcase, is developing and designing our characters in terms of skills and professions, and creating our own class, is that kind of going to be handled in the same kind of modular function?
Funny that you discuss about RPG, because that's also one of those things that we just talked about today.
Except they posted not the full interview, those silly people. They just dropped the exclusive update overview instead of the full interview. Oh wait, hold on, I have one for that.
That we are looking at, but the plans for those are not nailed down yet. So what we are looking to do is to do class, basically have cloth wearers, leather wearers, be useful in their own way in combat, but the exact details are still in flux and being discussed.
So basically what the dev said there is classes we don't want to necessarily exist in the game. We want players to have more free will as to how they build out their characters and play sets. Yeah.
So reading through the questions in the chat.
Yeah, feel free to take one of them, some of them as you want. It was prepared before, of course.
Yeah. Well, the really easy one. So two-headed sword. The simple reason that was removed is the we wanted each one of the weapons in the game to have like some unique flavor of capability, and
Hey, thanks for the follow.
for this update, we just didn't have the time to actually make sure that all the weapons in the game have some like meaningful differentiation. So I'm sure the two-handed swords, they will make a comeback eventually, but that needs to come with some specific use for the weapon type.
To be clear, it's not all 200 swords. It's the great swords.
Yeah.
So like
So-
Zweihander.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so I said this at the very beginning of the stream as well. So it's not all two-handed swords that are gone. It's just the Zweihanders. Zweihanders are getting something different. So that is important to know. Don't go throwing away all of your two-handed swords, just your Zweihanders.
So this is basically a two-handed sword, and still in the game.
Lore, yes, we very much still like are intending to put the like more it into the game. I was just actually maybe reading some text that's going to be appear in items that you can find, not in this update, but in the future. And the basically the night church stuff we're like actually making some of that right now. We don't know exactly, so it's gonna appear in like small pieces over time.
Night system, churches, gonna appear in a small bit over time.
So there's not going to be like we'd like to get some of those things into the game as soon as possible. So we're not going to be waiting for a like mega update that introduces a massive amount of features in one go.
So what he said, they're not waiting for a mega update. They're going to be adding things a little bit more piecemeal over the course of the next while. They want to get things to us sooner rather than later. And then, I think we're getting close to the point in time where we talk about gold as well, which is going to be great.
And yeah, so we're like, I'm hoping that the next bigger update is going to have some of it. But we actually just
Yeah, so Holy Dan, I do think that what they were saying is they think territory control and building outside of zones and stuff like that. I do think that's going to be a little bit further out, but I think that they're going to be adding knighthoods and churches in piecemeal over time. I do think that I think they might mention that they're actively developing some stuff with regards to church and all of that too. So I think they're trying to get like those miracles and stuff out to add more dynamic content to the game and reasons for players to keep going where it's something. Oh, I'm spoiling it. Let's get to the money conversation.
Got it. And would you say that the economy system or like gold, is that something that you guys are more focused on now than the feudal system?
Yeah. So so basically the market's gold and useful gold is that's the next major thing that we really want to put in the game, and we want to to come to your hands as soon as possible. So that's the so there's a couple other things we're doing as well, but the markets is basically that's the main push in terms of the gameplay.
But I'm sorry, but will be like a trading post or like vendors in our base or something like that.
This is market.
Yeah, I guess we haven't really discovered. Peter, can you remember? Like, did we ever really tell anything about it? The
I'm
market,
not sure how
is,
much. I'm not sure how much detail we've shared about that yet.
I was dying right here because I wanted to tell them how much they'd already shared and been like, oh, I can tell you, you've shown us a image of like an in development concept of a market stall. You've mentioned how you want the gold economy to kind of work and kind of tell them some of those things. But I was just going to let them cook and see what we got.
But essentially, it's kind of harks back to what I was saying earlier, like trying to provide like simple mechanics that give players the ability to kind of, provide content for other players. So vendors know, but essentially players and player organizations will be able to build their own markets and put up wares for sale. That's kind of the core of it. We'll continue working on it to make it easier to kind of browse markets in the area, and set up buy orders for items, things like that. But yeah, we're actively working on basically the markets that you can build and set up for like visiting travelers and traders to sell your goods, and gold, of course.
Okay, so orders, buy, sell orders, player organizations plus individuals also will be able to use them. And then he mentioned gold, which instantaneously activated Eltarii.
And part of the future, the market's obviously also going to be that the strategic placement of where you're running your market is going to be super important. So right now you can only like obviously build them with heartlands. That might change. And so the amount of things you can get in each one of the heartlands. So like we're looking into making the economy deeper as well, where you live is actually like you're always going to have some things available in your local area that might be very hard to get somewhere else in the world.
Building markets outside of the actual home valleys, there being resource disparity where not all home valleys are going to have all of the resources. They're going to have some, but not all, which incentivizes movement.
And conversely, like vice versa as well. So like if you actually like live on the opposite corners of the world, those people will have something you want, and the other way around. So actually, like working as a traveling salesman is going to be a lucrative business for some of the players.
Traveling salesman. Perfect. One question that I would kind of add on to that for the market system is gold. Gold. Yeah, I would imagine some of these new PvE sites are going to be where we might acquire gold in the future. But what typically when you add gold, it's because there's some they shook their heads. So I'm calling that confirmation. They didn't say yes. The question wasn't that are we getting gold from these points of interest. I have a little bit more of a sophisticated question. Here it is. Intrinsic kind of sink that's going to receive all of this gold that gives it that intrinsic value. Can you maybe share a little bit of what that intrinsic value might be in the future? So, hey, we're getting these points of interest. I think it's safe to assume that we get gold from them in the future, or we might be able to. But if you're adding gold, I have no reason to get it unless you give me reasons to use it. In other words, gold sinks. If you have gold inputs, you have to have gold outputs. So that was the question. What are the gold sinks? When are we getting them? Because they said the first thing that we're working on is getting gold and market into the game. Okay, what are the gold sinks? Mainframe, what are the gold sinks? And you can tell I got them. You can tell I got them because they're all smiling. They're trying to like get their way around this. They're like, shoot, are we gonna say something that we're not supposed to right now? It's hilarious. Or is that too difficult of a question?
No, it's not a question. Like no. I'm not sure if I want to spill the beans on that.
Okay.
No, I'm just smiling because I think there have been like 5 or 6 great questions in this interview that we literally had extensive meetings on today and yesterday.
So there will be intrinsic value though that you're working on for this. It's not just gonna see. And this is another important thing. No isn't no. No is just not yet. So they are planning on sharing more of it. They said that they're talking about it even today. So they must have been having like morning design meetings. And this was filmed in the afternoon after work their time. And I really do appreciate them taking their time away. It looks like most of them aren't in the studio. It looks like they're all at home at this point in time. So they're taking time out of their days, to go and have these conversations with us. So kudos to Mainframe for doing that. But, I didn't take no for an answer here because I really wanted to get it. So basically I rephrased the question and said, hey, you can't tell us what they are, but are there going to be really important reasons to have gold that have true benefit to us?
Be very valuable, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I guess the takeaway, even though we cannot talk about those things, is that we are probably working on the right things. So what the community wants, we want to also build, but we are not there yet. So we are working on them like all the time.
Yeah, basically the just regarding the gold economy, because obviously we've been working.
And then the thing I like is that they just keep like, I don't have to ask them at this point in time. They just keep going. They're like, oh, and so
On MMOs before, and playing a lot of MMOs, and we think one of the critical aspects of having the gold economy actually be something that will continue to work in the future is that there needs to be such a good gold sink in the game that everybody's gonna want basically to have endless amount of gold, and you have the opportunity to spend a lot of it. So the first version of the gold sink might not quite get there, but we're going to be adding more content into it, and I think I'm very happy about what we're building right now to be able to provide a robust sink.
robust sync
Okay, and
confirmed.
you guys mentioned that economy is going to be a thing, and then being able to create clans and then form feudal systems are also going to be a thing. How do you guys plan to keep the balance between PvE and PvP to keep both sides of the field relevant and still fun for your players?
Actually, good question. To summarize, Damon's asking, how is PvE and PvP based players going to meet in the middle and benefit each other?
I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess the $100 question.
I mean, the core answer, really, to my answer at least to that, is that each of the kind of the established game loops in the game, whether it's gathering or crafting or building buildings or doing.
Golden Company confirmed being a sync. Okay, hold on. We are working on a bank concept. In fact, I think we have the first functional bank in Pax Dei as of about a month and a half ago. We are working on a way for you to earn interest. FYI, that does technically make the Golden Company a gold sync, but we are going to return your value with interest. It's going to be awesome. It's something that we're working on. In the Golden Company, we trust.
In PvP or doing PvE or any combination of those things.
In the Divine, we trust. Let me rephrase that. Woof! Almost avoided entire just slews of messages calling me heretical. I apologize.
We're making sure that players
Tattered
who are
interest.
hardcore kind of focused on any of these game loops are producing some
No,
kind of
no,
value
not
that
me.
they're doing the best. They're producing some kind of value that their clan needs, whether it is gathering bulk materials, gathering magical relics, earning gold, etc., or producing consumables. So we're kind of, as we are actively working on our kind of PvP and territory control plans, we are taking care, make sure that PvPers have something really valuable to gain that is valued by other people in the player base, and at the same time making sure that people who are farming or crafting or are focusing on raiding dungeons, that they're also earning something that they're earning something that how do you say, that isn't more easily done in a different game loop. So people who want to raid dungeons and that they're hardcore kind of dungeon runners or PvEers, they're bringing value into the game, into the economy that you can't really get any other way.
Yeah, the PvP setup that we'd love to get, actually, there's some pretty strong incentives for even the PvPers to not just blindly kill everybody in the PvP areas. Because right now, if you go to Lioness, you can basically you just no reason not to kill anyone you meet. But the way we're actually looking at it is making it so that the PvPers actually are probably going to be incentivized to police their own areas and keep people safe, where they're in control, because it's in their economic interest to actually make sure that is the case.
Okay, so this was a really important little
tidbit here at the very end of the interview. And that's basically Sulka was saying that PvPers, the dynamic, because originally the question was, where do PvPers and PvEers kind of meet in the middle? And the answer up until this point was, well, PvEers are going to be better at going into dungeons, and PvPers need the things that are from dungeons, but they also are going to be focused on PvPing, so they really need that, supply of things from dungeons. But then on the flip side, for the PvPers, what Sulka's saying is that they're going to be incentivized in the future. There's going to be incentivization for PvPers to protect the area that's under their domain, to incentivize trade and to incentivize all of these other things. So that's where the importance is going to lie, is, having the protection to everyone else in the area. If you have control, you're not going to want to just go and murder everyone in the area of your domain. You're going to want to protect them even.
So because at least to be like the PvP, which is just like everybody's after each other, that's kind of like the most boring version, because you don't really need to care about factions. You just kill everything in sight, and we're actually looking to do something a bit deeper and more complicated.
So for that, what Sulka was saying is they want to add more dynamics to it. They want to have more layers that you have to consider, where it's not just, ooh, see red kill. It's going to be, ooh, see red, ooh, hold up. That's not the group that we want to be fighting. Don't kill that guy. There's going to be a little bit more, faction level kind of gameplay, where you don't want to necessarily start wars with random people, because it's not going to behoove you in the future. And they're trying to make it so making a choice of going to war is going to have both positive and, what it sounds like, negative repercussions for you as a group.
Okay. And as we move through this PvE and PvP evolution, how is magic going to come into play, and how will that evolve over time?
I think a Christian.
All right. First and foremost, if you've been watching the YouTube for a while, you already know the answers to these questions. Y'all are pretty much experts at this point, and I do appreciate you for subbing over on YouTube and following along. There's a lot of people even in chat right now who have been either channel members or hanging out in the comment section for close to 2 years at this point, and you all are the experts here. So the question, I think, was, how is magic going to develop and evolve? Let's hear the answer, and then we might actually have a better response to kind of answer that as well.
Of course, if you want to talk through it, but magic, at least as present in the game right now with spells and combat and stuff like that, we want to add a much larger library of special abilities and spells that people kind of theory craft around and come up with classes and to be able to fill different roles in combat. But then outside of combat, even, we're part of some other stuff that we were just talking about also involves non-combat magic and spells and miracles and rituals and things like that can affect the world, and it can affect activity that you're doing outside of combat when you're crafting and gathering and getting blessings from divine blessings. And
all right, so what we heard here is miracles, rituals, divine blessings. Sounds like these three things are separate entities from each other. We wouldn't say miracles and miracles if rituals were the same thing as miracles. So non-combat magic is definitely something that is definitely in the works, and we've known that for a while. Magic as a whole right now is kind of I'm going to say a static system, where really the only way that you're acquiring it or doing anything with it is going to be by getting equipment that has magic on it. and you get that from relics that you pick up in dungeons, from elite mobs. In the future, it's entirely possible, when we know that they want books to be a thing, libraries to be a thing, knowledge to be a thing, there might be the ability to learn more about magic from texts and things like that. But for the time being, nothing has really changed when it comes to our current understanding of magic. But, you know, it is great to hear a distinction between things like rituals, miracles, and divine blessings. Those seem to be different. And I think we already have the first divine blessing that exists as a spell in game right now. And that's Loyos's blessing, right? Loyos's favor and then Loyos's blessing. So I think maybe blessings are more like buffs as opposed to rituals, which are non-combat things. Maybe they have different kinds of effects versus miracles, which again, they're non-combat, but maybe they're tied. I would think rituals might be shamanistic or druidic or something like that, Fae related maybe, whereas miracles very clearly have to do with divine magic.
Like that. Yeah. So magic is like, it's a big part of kind of the storytelling, the world storytelling that we want to do. And so yeah, we're working on that. I don't know if that answers the question necessarily, but yeah.
Oh, it definitely does. Definitely does.
I can
let my imagination run wild.
Confirm no
now.
sitting yet. Rip.
And there's also like while magic in the game is gotten from dungeons mostly, and it's kind of rare. All of it's player crafted in a way, but we want to have some magic that is more common, but while still keeping like those more rare ones that really take effort to get. So there's probably going to just be more of it, where you're gonna see common ones, maybe weaker ones, and maybe then even stronger ones that are even more rare.
So what Christian was saying here, Ostrich, what he was mentioning was, we are going to start seeing a bigger difference between magic, but magic is going to be something that's definitely more present. You're going to have some really common types of magic that are, you know, anyone has access to. You're going to see kind of the more standard types of magic, which are a little bit more difficult to get. And then maybe even some super rare types of magic that are incredibly difficult to get, that not many players have and are always, you know, out seeking for. So there is going to be, we're going to start noticing a lot more spells, I think, in the future, and the different tiers of those spells, but also, you know, lesser versions of spells, where like Pacify right now has its own like use and function, but one might be able to make the stretch that Pacify is just a weaker version of Mez, where Pacify only, you know, stops things from attacking you if they haven't seen you yet, whereas Mez stops them from attacking if they have. I wouldn't draw a direct line between that being a weaker and being a stronger, because Pacify is actually, in my opinion, still one of the most important spells in the game, because of being able to take those mobs out of your, you know, attack.
Very vague, but
I think we're running
Yeah.
out of time.
And that's
I'm
the
sorry,
end
we need
of
to stop
the
right
interview.
now. If you guys still have some questions that were not answered, you can send them to me by DM, and we'll try to reply to them.
But
in
that
written
is
form.
that is
I'm
that is the
taking your
interview.
questions, but if you can
Holy
still
crap!
send
I
them
did
to me
not
by DM, that would be
perceive
great.
that it was going to take literally
I don't
2
promise
hours to
we
get
will
through a
answer everything
52-minute
because some things we're
interview,
keeping
but we did really break it
secret for
down,
now, and we
I
can't
think,
go into too many details,
for
but
everyone,
we'll do our
and
best.
that was important.
As I mentioned, there is an embargo
So I think,
for this interview.
yeah. Look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye,
Nice to see you.
everyone.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, so that's that. Cool, huh? Very, very cool. Here I am. Oops. Hit the wrong button. Hit the wrong button. So yeah, how does everyone feel about that interview? What's the like general take on
the interview. Let me fix the screen here. Warp. Super cool. Hi, do I have a roadmap? No roadmap yet. They said they're coming out with it soon, or they want to come out with it pretty soon. So it's going to be coming soon, hopefully. But welcome to chat. Welcome to the channel. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited for it. Like I said, my highlights, like let me say my highlights right now. My highlights, let me zoom out so we have something cool to look at. My highlights are, I think the combat changes are huge. I think they're super important and super welcome. First and foremost, the changes with blocking and how blocking works, and how one, we can do our block cancels and we can do all of that stuff. But then if you block more than half the damage of any kind of special, ability or spell, then you don't face the effects of that spell. You still take the other half of damage, but if you block 51% of a shield bash's damage, then you do not get stunned. That adds a whole new dynamic to how we're fighting, especially in PvP. Thanks for the follow. But also in PvE, there's going to be a lot more kind of, cycles that you can go through with the addition. And then, a two-parter here. The second part is the addition of having heavy attacks being the final attack in your attack combo. That's really, really big, I think. And it's going to allow for a lot of interplay with regards to, again, PvP. I think it's really, really important because when you have PvP, you're going to be sitting there anticipating that third hit or the fourth hit, and you're going to hold your shield up. Okay, well, if I know a player is going to hold their shield up, it's a 50-50 that he actually goes through with it. Or maybe he looks like he's about to go through with it, and then he cancels it out, swaps his weapon, uses a special attack. And then we also have the 10-second timer now on your weapon swaps. So you can't just swap between your 8 different weapons that you have on your hotbar and use the special attack on every single one of them. That doesn't apply anymore. You won't be able to use it that way. That's not what it's intended to do. And that's going to change the dynamics of combat a whole heck of a lot. So yeah, hitting right click is going to be super important. The fact that you don't regain stamina when you're right clicking, the fact that you move slower when you're right clicking, those are all huge welcome changes. And I'm really excited for it. We do have 3 new spells. Now, the interesting thing here is that we do have, we have the 3 new spells. Let's take a look right up here. And if we scroll up, there was a spell that we didn't that they didn't mention, but we saw the spell previously. Was it here? No, it wasn't here. Keep scrolling. It was here. Open in browser. Zoom in. So there's 2 spells here that we haven't seen previously, but they weren't mentioned. We only had 3 spells that were actually mentioned. We know that this one right here is the Breath of Joy. That's the CC breaker. Again, another great add that is super important. But right here, it's just the CC breaker. We don't know what these 2 are. Maybe they were earlier versions of the same icon. Those are reworks of the new spell icons. Okay, cool. Is that, Mano, was that confirmed in Discord? Is that what those were? So it's the same. If it is, that's fine. Breath of Life is the second one. Breath of Balance is the third one. Okay. Okay, so those are just the reworks are the ones that we saw the actual pictures of. That's why they share the same symbols. Okay, cool. Yeah, so between the new spells, we get 3 new spells. They're starter spells, so people are going to be able to get them a lot earlier. All the changes with blocking and being able to block CC.
having one of the spells actually being a CC breaker that, gives you some stamina for sprinting, unlimited sprint stamina for 7 seconds, but it is a 2-minute spell for cooldowns. All really, really great additions. I think that's actually going to be some big ads on that, and people are going to see some positive effects there. So I'm really, really happy with those changes. I think we got some new information on, when we can expect the market update. They said that that's the next thing that they're working on, and that, there's going to be a gold sync, and they're making every effort possible to kind of make sure that those gold sinks are valuable. So that's really cool. It's going to be a while, I think, before we have territory control. So that is going to be that's going to be something that people are waiting on. But then they also said that they want to kind of start getting churches and knighthoods piecemeal out there. That was another big one, I think, as well. And there was a whole lot more. All of those videos are over on our YouTube channel. So I have the full interview. It's completely uncut. There's the kind of crappy pixelated Discord recording of actual gameplay in the background there too. So if you haven't done so, do go over to our YouTube, check that out. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe too. It helps the channel out. But normally we stream every Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But, so we'll be online again tomorrow. I did want to share a couple of things here. So on this upcoming, Saturday, we have the Golden Festival. Now, the Golden Festival is going to be all throughout the entire Golden City, which is right here. And the actual festival grounds are going to be located right over here. Now, there's going to be a lot of fun, merriment, and activities to be had. And if you are listening to this right now, or you're listening to the recording of this right now, and it hasn't been November 2nd yet, or you're inspired divinely and somehow you hear me talking, you're invited. So please do come and hang out. You can see that we have this little fairground placed all around part of Dolavan. There is some jump puzzles. There's like a rock climbing wall. We have a dark maze, which you can kind of see has some spooky smoke in it. And there's also bobbing for apples, which is right here. We have some would call a death slide, but I would just call a normal day at work. And we have a couple of different ones and a lot of different games, some game of cups. And all of these are going to have prizes with them. And do note that even though the game is wiping, you get to keep all of the items on your character and on your plots. So any of the magical items that we give away during this event are magical items that you get to keep on November 5th. So we're going to be giving away a bunch, and some of them are going to be at the tattered level. So some of the most rare items that you can get in game. You should totally come and check it out. And if you are interested, we do have the Great Golden Challenge, which is kind of, you can think of it like a amazing race. And that is going to start on Saturday, probably an hour or two into the event. And it's going to start right here. It's going to take you on a journey throughout the entire city. There's going to be a lot of riddles and different tasks to complete along the way. It will lead you all the way across the entire city and eventually lead you to the Golden Festival. And it is going to be really fun. It is going to be a competition. You will be going up against multiple teams, and the winners get an incredibly good, very useful, magical prize. So that's going to be really good too. I just wanted to give that a shout out on stream. I'll probably share more again tomorrow too. Now, just for anyone who's wondering, like, what the heck is going on with the update and when is it coming? What's going on? How is that all working?
Cthulhu Cultist, hello and welcome. Thanks for the follow. So the way that, or the update, when is it coming? It's coming November 5th. It's going to be coming in the morning of November 5th if you're in Pacific Standard Time. And I will be streaming throughout the course of the entire day. That is going to be a really fun time. The update is called the Proving Grounds Verse 1 update. And I think all the updates are going to have verses to them. And it's primarily going to be including a lot of different combat changes, like I just kind of alluded to. There's going to be 3 new spells, and there's going to be a bunch of other new stuff to talk about in terms of biomes and locations with the solo PvE content and stuff like that too. So it's a good time to get back into Pax Dei or try it out for the first time. In addition to that, all of this, everything that you see right here is going away. It is getting wiped. The servers are getting wiped. But if you were someone who built, you actually are still getting all of the resources on your plot back. So you will be able to rebuild quickly, which is really, really nice. A good quality of life. This was a lot of wood, stone, and clay together. So you won't be getting put all the way back to square one unless you really want to. And it is more than okay for you to do that either way. But you do get to keep all of your items in any of your equipment. Your characters are not going to be on the same server. All the servers are going away. And each region, I think, is getting 2 servers. So EU has 2 servers. US has 2 servers. 1 normal and 1 RP on both of those, and then Oceania has 1. So and not RP specifically. So there's only going to be five available. Hopefully the plot cap in the home valleys has been increased, but who knows? It's going to be fun either way, though, and it's going to be a great opportunity to go and meet some new people. I know that the Golden Company is really looking forward to growing our community out past the Golden Company and, build the Golden City into something big and great and bring some new neighbors in as well. So that's going to be really, really fun. And I'm looking forward to sharing that experience with all of you, both here on Twitch and over on YouTube with all of our YouTube videos. We do have some tutorials and stuff that are going to be coming out in the next couple of days/weeks with the new combat updates that are happening. Most of our content is over on our YouTube channel. So if you aren't subscribed over there, definitely consider going over there so that you can get those updates when they come out as soon as possible. But it's been 2 hours and 21 minutes of me talking straight. I am operating on less than 4 hours of sleep, and I am ready to go take a rest. I will be back again tomorrow for the regularly scheduled Very Professional live stream, and I will see you all over there. But thank you again, everyone who did tune in. For anyone who's watching the recording of this, super glad that you could make it. If you came in halfway through and you're like, wait, what just happened? We have the full interview actually on our YouTube channel. You can go check it out. And I look forward to seeing many, many, many of you on the Golden Festival Day this Saturday, November 2nd. It starts at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 Eastern Time. And it's going to be a really fun bash. Maybe we break the server along the way, but you are more than welcome. And where are we located? We are located in US East Danu, specifically on the Golden Isle of Dolavan. You won't be able to spawn into Dolavan. You're going to have to go to one of the surrounding regions, but then you can all converge here. We're going to be giving away a lot of magical items during this. We can give you a tour of the city if you want. We have many Golden Company members that are still there. And I look forward to seeing many of you over the course of the next couple of days. And as we go into the wipe and subsequent rebuilding of the Golden City in a new location. But with all of that, thanks again for tuning in. And I'm Eltarii, the Professional Gamer. Have a great rest of your day, morning, night, and I will see you literally tomorrow. So have a good rest of the day. Bye.